Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with Codominance by CurlyStar09, and we are reading chapters 27 and 28 today. Chapter 27, The Mole. The three of them shared a bed that night, Akio between his two dads who didn't sleep as much as they would have liked. Both were too wrapped up in their own minds, reaching out to each other and their son just to make sure they were still there. Kirishima pulled Bakugou into a kiss whenever he saw that they were both awake. It was ridiculous, the fear of losing Bakugou and Akio, the fear of being able to save Katsumi, of already being too late. He tried to push it down and to hold on to the facts that gave them hope. They needed Katsumi, after all. Kazuko was talking about her as if she was the stronger of the two twins. Not only that, they would be unable to raise more children unless they had someone else with the DNA rewriting quirk. There were a lot of what-ifs in this, but they all pointed to Katsumi still being with them. "Hey, you need to try and get some sleep," Bakugou's voice told him as he cupped his partner's cheek. Kirishima trailed off, unable to finish that sentence, and part of him knew that he didn't have to. "I know, love," Bakugou assured him. "I know the others got a lot of work done after we left. We will get them soon." "Cats," Kirishima started. "I feel like we wasted too much time." Bakugou hesitated slightly. "We didn't know. If we had, you know that we would have searched for her right away." Kirishima only nodded as he leaned into Bakugou's hand a bit more heavily. He felt Akio's arm hit him as he stretched out before settling back with a content sigh. It made him relax just a little, knowing that one of their kids was safe and with them. Bakugou leaned over, kissing Kirishima carefully, while making sure not to squish Akio in the process. "Try to get some sleep, love." Bakugou almost sounded like he was begging. Kirishima let out a small hum in agreement. There was nothing else to do but try and get some rest. Time passes. Akio woke them up the next morning, crying softly from needing a bottle and a diaper change. Kirishima was surprised that he had actually gotten some sleep, but moved into action quickly. Comforting Akio as he picked him up, Bakugou groaned awake as he did so. "Is he okay?" Bakugou asked, voice heavy with sleep. "He's fine, sweetheart," Kirishima assured him. "I'll get the bottle," Bakugou offered as he pushed into a sitting position. He only stopped to kiss Kirishima softly and mumble, "Morning." "Morning," Kirishima answered, and watched as Bakugou headed towards the kitchen. "All right, little pebble," Kirishima told Akio as he adjusted him in his arms in order to stand up. "Let's get rid of that diaper. It's going to be a long day." Once Akio had a clean diaper and was holding his bottle to his lips, Kirishima and Bakugou sat at the kitchen table, each of them with a mug of coffee in front of them. "When are we meeting the others?" Kirishima asked. "As soon as we can get to Fatgum's," Bakugou answered. "It's closer to HC than my agency. Not only that, but Tetsu can look after Akio while we're there." Kirishima nodded. "That sounds like a plan." He turned to look at Akio, who was in his arms, content with where he was. "Did they find out anything else yesterday?" Kirishima asked as he pushed Akio's hair back slightly. "They won't fucking tell me until we get there," Bakugou grumbled. "Katsuki," Kirishima warned. "I'm sorry, love," Bakugou told him, sounding almost defeated. This is all so frustrating." "I know," the redhead said with a sigh. "I just want to have answers already." "Let's get some, Red. The sooner we get started, the sooner our little girl will be home." Kirishima nodded. They both stood up, ready to get ready for the day ahead, but not before sharing a kiss or two, just to reassure each other. They were in this together, and nothing would stop them. Kirishima took a shower first, while Bakugou got Akio's things ready. They did a quick exchange in order for Bakugou to get ready. Akio didn't seem to mind, mostly preoccupied with his toys. His fat gum plush already next to him by the time they were ready to head out. Kirishima couldn't help but kiss Akio's cheeks every chance he got. "Are you ready, love?" Bakugou asked, wrapping his arms around his partner for a hug. "Ready, sweetheart." Kirishima said as he kissed the blonde softly. Let's get some shit done. Time passes. We got more info out of her, Deku told them as soon as they walked into the meeting room. Sero and Shinso were the only other people there as Bakugou and Kirishima walked in. Bakugou's eyes went wide and taking the file Deku was holding. What did she say? Some more info on the other baby, Deku explained. Also, we were able to narrow the location a bit more. Shinso and I are heading over to HC today, Sero chimed in. It's time for me to use my quirk, Shinso announced. I'll try to get as much out of her as possible. Did she say anything about what they plan to do with Katsumi? Kirishima asked. Everyone hesitated, looking at each other and avoiding looking at Bakugou and Kirishima. Answer the damn fucking question, Bakugou demanded as he glared at all of them. Sero let out a sigh before starting. They aren't going to hurt her. How are you so sure? Bakugou demanded. They have no other way of creating another child at this point, so the best way to try again would be... Sero hesitated, shifting nervously. They want her to reproduce. Shinso finished, jaw tight. If they can't find someone else to create the perfect villain, they will use her to create more. Shoto almost froze Kazuko to death when he heard her explaining it, Deku told them, eyes trained on the floor. It was clear he had been ready to let it happen. Bakugou was about to speak, but he saw the way Kirishima tensed up next to him and waited for his partner to say what was running through his mind. We need to find this warehouse or whatever the fuck it is now, Kirishima told them. His voice would sound controlled to anyone who didn't know him as well as the people in that room. Kirishima was pissed off and was trying his best to keep the anger from exploding before he found the actual target. Bakugou nodded once, one of his hands finding one of Kirishima's arms in order to show support. Where are we at when it comes to locations? He asked the others. With no hesitation, the others started explaining everything they knew, from the hospitals they had cleared and the information they had been able to pull from the different areas. They had been able to narrow it down to a 10-mile radius, which was a lot better than what they had before. Then again, it was a very populated area with a lot of activity that would make it both easier to blend in and harder to locate anyone. This is why we want to go back and use my quirk on her, Shinso explained. If we can get one more detail that will narrow it down, we could find Katsumi easier. Bakugou nodded as he eyed the map. It was still a large area after all. Uraraka and Mina already tried to survey the area. They are over there now, trying to get a feel for the area, Sero informed them. That could spook the villains and make them go underground, Kirishima pointed out, a frown forming on his face at the thought. They aren't wearing hero costumes, Deku explained. They are undercover and will report anything interesting they find. Where's Todoroki? Kirishima asked, noticing that he was the only one unaccounted for. He's talking to HC now, trying to find the mole. There has to be one with the way Kazuko was talking. Deku mumbled, expression hard. I think I know who it is, Bakugou declared. Or at least who could start us off on the right path. Sato, Kirishima declared, knowing exactly where Bakugou was headed. Even if it's not her, Bakugou started. We can get some answers out of her. I don't believe that bullshit that no one knew what she was doing when she was fucking around with us. She's the one that sent Kirishima on that bogus mission? Sero asked. That's the fucking one, Bakugou confirmed, guessing that either means you two want me to do it, or we should keep you away from her. Shinso told them, watching them carefully. Whichever it is, I'm sure she knows something, Bakugou told them. We have to start moving, Kachan, Deku interjected. Time is ticking. Time passes. The room for questioning was a simple office. Sato wasn't being accused of anything, at least not yet. They had no evidence that she was involved in any of it, but Bakugou had a feeling that he hadn't been able to shake since the first time he met her. He honestly didn't feel like he could control himself in front of her. He may punch her before they got any information they were after. Yet, he had to be there. First of all, he wouldn't leave Kirishima alone for it. They had to do this together. They had to find their daughter together. Bakugou was pacing around the room, but he wasn't sure if it was because he was nervous or angry at the idea of seeing Sato again. If that woman knew all along about Katsumi, he would make sure she would rot in a cell. When they told the Hero Commission about their suspicions, Bakugou expected them to demand proof, but instead they jumped into action. Sato was on unpaid leave due to the previous incident, as the HC lackey that they had talked to had explained. It was the fact that she hadn't been fired or even thrown into prison that was bothering him, even though he knew there had to be an investigation first. "Cats, stop. You are making me more anxious," Kirishima said, reaching out a hand for Bakugou to take as he walked by him for the 100th time at least. Bakugou took the hand without hesitation, rubbing his thumb over his partner's knuckles. "Sorry, A. Just trying to talk myself out of blasting that fucking asshole through a wall when she walks in." He kissed Kirishima's knuckles, partly because he could and partly to try to calm himself a bit. "We get the information we need first, and then you can blast her out of a window on the top floor," Kirishima said, tone a bit too serious to be a joke. "Info first, got it," Bakugou responded, squeezing Kirishima's hand and relaxing when the redhead squeezed back. The door opened, making them both take a breath as they readied themselves just to relax once more when they saw Purple Hair walk in. "Why do you two look like you're about to walk into hell?" Shinso asked as way of a greeting. Bakugou rolled his eyes and answered with a annoyed groan. "Are they bringing Sato over already or not?" "They're ushering Sato up now," Shinso told them. Kirishima took a sharp breath. "How are we doing this then?" "Try to get as much from her as we can, but more than likely we will need Shinso to use his quirk on her," Bakugou told them. Shinso nodded. "All right, sounds like a plan." "Let's do this," Kirishima said, standing up, his hand still in Bakugou's. A few moments later, the door opened. Two of the Hero Commission's lackeys they had been talking with that day walked in with Sato between them. Her eyes narrowed as soon as she saw them, but she didn't say a word. Her lips tightened into a thin line as she walked into the room and sat at the chair farthest away from them. Bakugou didn't miss the slight glint of the quirk-neutralizing handcuffs under her blazer. "We have some questions for you," Bakugou started, glaring at Sato, who seemed to be disinterested in what he was saying. "You seem to be following your own rules when it came to our situation," Kirishima continued. Sato's eyes went to the table as if already bored with the conversation, letting out a sigh after a couple seconds. "I was doing my job." She practically spat at them. "Not the one assigned by the Hero Commission," Bakugou countered. "We read the assignment file you were given, and it said nothing about intimidating us into doing what you wanted for our kid." The last few words sounded angrier, but Bakugou didn't care. "I was making sure you were following the rules," Sato told him as if it was obvious. "Heroes have a tendency of thinking they are above the rules way too often." "Is that how you feel about all heroes?" Shinso interjected. "That we can't follow the rules, so you have to enforce them?" Sato raised an eyebrow, but didn't respond. That was a bad sign. It meant she knew Shinso's quirk, even though he was an underground hero. They needed to act quickly. "Are you working for anyone else?" Bakugou demanded. "Oh, so something is going on that has all of you this rattled?" Sato told him. "You know exactly what we are talking about, don't you?" Kirishima said. It wasn't a question. His eyes narrowed as he watched Sato. "I may have some idea what's going on just by your reaction," Sato said slowly. "Something happened to it, didn't it?" Kirishima slammed his fist on the table. "I thought I told you not to refer to our son like that." "It has something to do with him, then," Sato hummed. "What the fuck do you know?" Bakugou demanded, glaring at Sato, who seemed amused by the whole encounter. "I know nothing. I've been stripped of almost all of my power within the Hero Commission while the internal investigation takes place. I don't even know why I was called here today. I thought it was to get an apology for how I was treated, but this is completely the opposite." I thought you would be arrested, but you are still living comfortably, Bakugou told her pointedly. I was, Sato told him, showing more of her cuffs. Have had these on since then. I made bail and I'm awaiting trial. She sounded bitter, but it was more emotion than she had shown since walking into the room. She was starting to slip, her eyes focused on the handcuffs around her wrists. No remorse, then, Kirishima's voice said. What is that? She had fallen for it. Shinso lowered his mask as Bakugou and Kirishima relaxed as they saw Sato's eyes glaze over. Now we can start, Shinso said. Do you know who Kazuko Mazu is? Yes, Sato answered without any hesitation. Bakugou bit his tongue, and he knew Kirishima was doing the same. How do you know her? Shinso continued his questioning. From the file I got about the mission. She was the one who was trying to create the clones. I thought the Hero Commission should use her, make more of those things in order to form an army of heroes that would actually know how to follow orders. Shinso let out a sigh. At least she isn't hiding her true intentions now. Bakugou could see Kirishima trying to calm himself with deep breaths. She wanted Akio to be the first one in that army, wasn't she? That's why she kept saying she would take him if we didn't follow the rules. Shinso turned back to Sato. Was that the plan? Yes, she said automatically. The first of many. She doesn't know what we need, Kirishima told them. It's obvious she was more focused on her own plans. She wasn't involved with the villains, even though she is one herself. This isn't going to help, Bakugou declared. I'll keep questioning her. Get enough to lock her up for life, Shinso told them. Bakugou nodded. We will go help the others. Come on, Red. Kirishima stood up, taking Bakugou's hand as they walked out of the room. Time passes. Hey, love, Bakugou said once they had left the room. Calm down. She wanted to use him. We should have seen it, Katz, Kirishima said, not stopping as they made their way out of the HC. They needed to head back to the agency to come up with a plan B to find the mole, if there was even one at this point. We did, Bakugou reminded him, pulling at Kirishima's arm to stop him. Kirishima finally turned to look at his partner. That's why we have to play by her rules. That's why you had to leave so we could file a complaint against her. Do you think I don't want to kick her ass right now? Kirishima shook his head. He knew Bakugou wanted to go back in there as much as he did. I thought we could. She was supposed to know where Katsumi is. I know, Bakugou told him, his voice a bit sad as he stepped closer, wrapping his arms around Kirishima's waist. We are just going to have to fucking think of something else. He leaned his head on Kirishima's chest. Kirishima wasted no time wrapping his arms around his partner, knowing that they were getting closer but feeling like they weren't close enough. They wouldn't be close enough until they had Katsumi in their arms. What are we going to do now? Kirishima asked. There's still a mole. We will just have to expose them, Bakugou declared. We can't have them running off and giving us away. Chapter 28. Everywhere. They needed a plan. A solid plan to smoke out the mole. That was all that was running through Bakugou's head. He was feeling like there was a ticking time bomb on them, and they needed to find a way to defuse it. He just had to figure this out. There had to be a way to do this without alerting the mole and making them run for cover. It just felt like they were missing something. Who knew about the raid before it started? Bakugou said out loud without thinking. Just the people there, as far as I know, Deku answered. They had been locked up in a conference room in Fakum's agency for about 2 hours. Kirishima had stepped out to get some food for everyone with Sero. They weren't any closer than they were that morning, just staring at the same information again and again, hoping it would drop a clue on what to do or how to proceed. Do we have a list? Bakugou asked, suddenly realizing a big part of what they hadn't considered. None of the heroes were told any of the details of the raid until just moments before it started. That's why they hadn't even been aware they would be part of it till that day. Why so many of them had been called at the last minute. So who knew ahead enough in order to warn the villains? That was the missing part they needed to find the mole. I don't think so. Maybe? Deku asked as he frowned, mumbling to himself about how they should have it and where it would be in the mess of files they had. I need it now, Bakugou told Deku as he started organizing some of the information they had laid out on the table. I can call HC and... No, don't call them. Go down there and get it yourself. We don't want anyone to know about this. The fewer flags we raise, the better. Deku hesitated, but nodding, knowing it was the best plan they had. I'll see what I can do then. You know, I could probably get the list without going through all those channels. Todoroki spoke up suddenly. How the fuck would you do that, Icy Hot? Bakugou asked with a frown. Endeavor has access to all the HC files without having to go through any of the paperwork. You know, since he signed up to be part of the committee to make sure the HC wasn't corrupt after the war. Todoroki shrugged. He can access any file without needing clearance, especially if he has any suspicions of foul play. What the fuck? You shitty... And you are just telling us this fucking now? Bakugou yelled, not sure if he was happy about the news or annoyed that it took Todoroki so long to say something. I'm not even supposed to technically know about it, Todoroki said with another shrug. Can Endeavor get those files then? Deku asked, eyes big and bright with excitement. Guess I'll give him a call, Todoroki mumbled, sounding annoyed at the idea. Thanks, Bakugou said, just loud enough to be heard. He knew Todoroki's relationship with his father was still a bit rocky on better days. It meant a lot that his friend was willing to ask his father for help with something like this. All right, what else do we need to do? Bakugou said with a sigh. Time passes. Kirishima and Sero arrived with the food a while later, with Akio in Kirishima's arms as they walked into the room. Akio had been staying with Fat Gum most of the day. The Pro Hero's office looked more and more like a playground with every passing hour, to the baby's delight. Fat Gum enjoyed spending time with the little boy who needed to stay close by at the moment. It made his dads feel a bit better knowing he was nearby and with someone they both trusted so deeply. Hey, Gremlin. Bakugou smiled as soon as he looked up to see Akio, who shrieked in delight at the sight of his dad. Hope you don't mind that I brought him along, it being lunch and all, Kirishima said as he kissed Bakugou hello, long and sweet, even though he had been gone a half an hour at most. Thanks, love, Bakugou told him as he took Akio into his arms. Akio wasted no time babbling at Bakugou with a bright smile. Bakugou leaned down to kiss his son's cheek. Got that spicy bowl you like, Kirishima told him as he started setting up the food. Mina and Uraraka are heading back. They have some info they want to share. Said they would rather tell us in person, Sero commented as he grabbed his own food and found a place to sit. That's good to hear, Bakugou hummed as he adjusted Akio so that he could eat. Kirishima sat down next to his partner, his own bowl of food in front of him before reaching for a file nearby. What did I miss? Kirishima asked as he scanned through the file. Todoroki's trying to get a file for us, and Deku followed behind him after a while, Bakugou said as he started eating. Can you tell me more about it? Kirishima questioned. Bakugou let out a sigh. I would rather wait till we know if we have what we need, and if it's even useful. Kirishima eyed his partner, noticing the way a small frown pulled at his lips as he said it. It was best to not push Bakugou to talk about this. He had learned that some time ago. He knew he would be told when the time was right. Are we sure that this is all the data that was collected? Sero asked suddenly. Sero was looking at all of the files that were laid out on the large table. What is that supposed to mean, tape face? Bakugou grumbled. We are looking for a mole, Blasty. How do we know they didn't tamper with the information we have? Sero pointed out, his face serious as he gestured at everything in front of them. Sero's words hung in the air, the room feeling heavy. The only one moving was Akio, who was busy trying to grab whatever was nearest to him from the table. Fucking shit, you just created a whole shit ton more work for us. Bakugou broke the silence with a frustrated groan, letting his chopsticks drop to the table before he stood. He adjusted Akio in his arms as he started walking out of the room. Where are you heading? Kirishima asked, already following and hearing Sero close behind. Stupid plain face made me realize that we have been too trusting, taking everything at face value, too black and fucking white. Katsuki, Kirishima said as a warning. Even if he was upset, Akio was still there with them. Bakugou turned around but didn't stop walking as he gave Akio over to Kirishima. I should have known it had been too easy, eh? Bakugou said, a flash of something in his eyes. Kirishima wasn't sure if it was disappointment or anger, maybe both, but his partner knew something. Bakugou turned around as he led them down the hall to Fatgum's office. Fat, Bakugou called out as he opened the door without a knock. Hey, what's going on? Fatgum asked them with a raised eyebrow. Anyone working for the Hero Commission has to introduce themselves as they talk to a hero. Does that apply to any level? Bakugou demanded to know. Fatgum blinked at him, taken aback by the seemingly random question. Yeah, it's part of the protocol in order for heroes to be able to tell others who they got their orders from and why. Also for transparency reasons. Cats, Kirishima started, even more confused now. What are you getting at? He just let it go, eh? Bakugou said. It was in their best interest that we didn't look into it anymore, that no one looked into it anymore. So he told us that we were good, that they wanted to help us, give us anything we needed. It was all fucking bullshit because he thought we wouldn't find out. Bakugou started ranting before going into a string of curses under his breath, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Kirishima turned to Sero, who was just as confused. Hold him, he said before handing Akio to Sero. He walked up to Bakugou, his hands on his partner's cheeks to make the blonde look at him. Katsuki, I need you to breathe and explain, okay, sweetheart? Bakugou looked at Kirishima, nodding as one of his hands covered his partner's. We had the mole in front of us just days ago, Bakugou told him. The man in the meeting after you got back. It's him. I'm fucking sure of it, eh? Kirishima looked at Bakugou, eyes going wide. The meeting. The one where... I bet you anything his name is on the list of people that knew about the raid, Bakugou told him. Is there a recording of this meeting? Fatgum asked, breaking the two partners away from their realization. There should be. Bakugou frowned as he pulled slightly away from Kirishima, but didn't let go of his hand. There were a lot of other people in that meeting there. It couldn't have just disappeared. He was the only one that didn't introduce himself. They arrested Sato due to that meeting, gave us fucking clearance for this mission because of him. We didn't question any part of it. We need to find it, Fatgum told him. I'll call Todoroki, Bakugou told him with a nod. If he is the mole, and you're talking about who I think you're talking about, he is our direct contact for the mission, Fatgum told them. A silence fell over the room as the realization hit all of them. Time passes. Miyahira Yasushi. The name came up again and again once they knew what they were looking for. It was on every file they had been given as the one giving clearance or having something to do with how the information got obtained. Miyahira Yasushi was there in every single one. It made Bakugou's blood boil. How could he have been so blind? He had no excuse for missing something so important, other than that he had been an idiot. Todoroki and Deku returned with the file they had been wanting to look at, and the name was there once more. There was no denying it. They had found their mole, and they couldn't make a move without him knowing. "How do we approach this?" Todoroki asked. No one answered. How do you go after someone that is overseeing every move you make? How do they make sure that they don't raise any alarms that would give away what they knew or what they were going to do? "Does he know that we know about Katsumi?" Deku asked suddenly, head snapping up and looking at them intently. Bakugou blinked, looking over at the others, and he realized he hadn't submitted a report for the day before. "Holy shit, I didn't submit the report yesterday. We left and after everything. We completely forgot." Kirishima finished for him. Bakugou rushed over to his computer, opening up the report he had been working on in intervals throughout the day. A plan was already formulated, but he needed a couple of things first. "Did we ever mention Katsumi in any of the interviews?" Bakugou asked as he started deleting parts of his report. "Mazu mentioned her during the interview," Kirishima responded. "Okay, we can edit that part of the video out," Bakugou said with a nod. It had been towards the end, and it would probably look sloppy for them to be turning in a video that was cut short. It would buy them time, though. "What are you thinking of doing, man?" "Going to turn in the report. Make sure we can check that we are right." Time passes. "What's going on?" Uraraka asked as soon as she and Ashido walked into the room. "We know who the mole is," Kirishima declared, but he didn't look up from the screen he and Bakugou had been staring at for the good part of an hour. The others were sitting around them on their own computers, editing their parts of the report, deleting any trace of the fact that they knew of the existence of another child. It made Kirishima's heart ache at the fact that they had to hide their daughter, but it was to protect her. They had to do it to ensure that they would be able to go and get her at all. Bakugou started explaining to Uraraka and Ashido what they were doing with the rest of the situation. Uraraka wasted no time starting to edit her report. Ashido went over to Sero, reading over his shoulder and asking to borrow the laptop after him to work on her own. "While everyone is doing that," Ashido started, "I thought I would let you all know that we found some rather suspicious activity near one of the hospitals on the list." "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" Bakugou asked. "The hospital seems empty when it comes to patients," Ashido started. "They seem empty most of the time, near a warehouse area. Yet, when we tried to go in and talk to someone, pretending to be a patient, of course, they told us they had no one that could see us." "That could mean that they're understaffed," Midoriya pointed out. "We thought so too," Uraraka chimed in. "And it may still be true. We were going to let it go, actually. Until we saw this." Ashido pulled out her phone and showed an image. The picture was of the hospital's wall of doctors that worked there, with their specialty listed right below with their names. In the middle of the photo was Kazuko Mazu. Her name was different, and her specialty was listed as reproductive endocrinologist. "We are going to have to edit these reports even more," Sero half whispered. Todoroki let out a sigh. "I think I will call my father now." All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for these next two chapters. I hope you enjoyed these two. I'm curious if you were surprised about the mole now that we've kind of figured out who it is, or if you thought that it was going to be Kazuko as well. The notes from the author were like, obviously it wasn't going to be her, which I think it's kind of funny. But it does make sense, though, if you kind of think back to that chapter where the guy didn't introduce himself, and at the time Bakugou and Kirishima brushed it off like, oh, he's just way too high up, he doesn't need to. And I know I felt the same way the first time I read it. All right, but anyway, that's enough rambling. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back to joining me for the next two chapters, which are going to be 29 and 30. See you next time.